Other states in the Middle East are coming to recognize that there are winners and losers, and have no wish to be on the losing side. Mohammed bin Salman's actions this year have not always worked in Saudi Arabia's favor. AFP Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, of Saudi Arabia is the undoubted Middle East Man of the Year, but his great impact stems more from his failures than his successes. He is accused of being Machiavellian in clearing his way to the throne by the elimination of opponents inside and outside the royal family. But when it comes to Saudi Arabia's position in the world, his miscalculations remind one less of the cunning maneuvers of Machiavelli and more of the pratfalls of Inspector Clouseau. Again and again, the impulsive and mercurial young prince has embarked on ventures abroad that achieve the exact opposite of what he intended. When his father became king in early 2015, he gave support to a rebel offensive in Syria that achieved some success but provoked full-scale Russian military intervention, which in turn led to the victory of President Bashar al-Assad. At about the same time, MBS launched Saudi armed intervention, mostly through airstrikes, in the civil war in Yemen. The action was code-named Operation Decisive Storm, but 2.5 years later the war is still going on, has killed 10,000 people and brought at least 7 million Yemenis close to starvation. The Crown Prince is focusing Saudi foreign policy on aggressive opposition to Iran and its regional allies, but the effect of his policies has been to increase Iranian influence. The feud with Qatar, in which Saudi Arabia and the UAE play the leading role, led to a blockade being imposed 5 months ago, which is still going on. The offense of the Qataris was to have given support to al-Qaeda-type movements, an accusation that was true enough but could be leveled equally at Saudi Arabia, and to having links with Iran. The net result of the anti-Qatari campaign has been to drive the small but fabulously wealthy state further into the Iranian embrace. Saudi relations with other countries used to be cautious, conservative and aimed at preserving the status quo. But today its behavior is zany, unpredictable and often counterproductive. Witness the bizarre episode in November when the Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri was summoned to Riyadh, not allowed to depart and forced to resign his position. The objective of this ill-considered action on the part of Saudi Arabia was apparently to weaken Hezbollah and Iran in Lebanon, but has in practice empowered both of them. What all these Saudi actions have in common is that they are based on a naive presumption that a best-case scenario will inevitably be achieved. There is no plan B, and not much of a plan. Saudi Arabia is simply plugging into conflicts and confrontations it has no idea how to bring to an end. MBS and his advisors may imagine that it does not matter what Yemenis, Qataris or Lebanese think, because President Donald Trump and Jared Kushner, his son-in-law and chief Middle East advisor, are firmly in their corner. I have great confidence in King Salman and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. They know exactly what they are doing, tweeted Trump in early November after the roundup and confinement of some 200 members of the Saudi elite. Some of those they are harshly treating have been milking their country for years. Earlier he had tweeted support for the attempt to isolate Qatar as a supporter of terrorism. But Saudi Arabia is learning that support from the White House these days brings fewer advantages than in the past. The attention span of Donald Trump is notoriously short, and his preoccupation is with domestic U.S. politics. His approval does not necessarily mean the approval of other parts of the U.S. government. The State Department and the Pentagon may disapprove of the latest Trump tweet and seek to ignore or circumvent it. Despite his positive tweet, the U.S. did not back the Saudi confrontation with Qatar or the attempt to get Mr. Hariri to resign as Prime Minister of Lebanon. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince country will return to moderate, open Islam. For its part, the White House is finding out the limitations of Saudi power. MBS was not able to get the Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas to agree to a U.S.-sponsored peace plan that would have given Israel very much and the Palestinians very little. The idea of a Saudi-Israeli covert alliance against Iran may sound attractive to some Washington think tanks, but does not make much sense on the ground. The assumption that Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and the promise to move the U.S. embassy there, would have no long-term effects on attitudes in the Middle East is beginning to look shaky. It is Saudi Arabia, and not its rivals, that is becoming isolated. The political balance of power and region changed to its disadvantage over the last 2 years. Some of this predates the elevation of MBS. By 2015 it was becoming clear that a combination of Sunni states led by Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Turkey was failing to carry out regime change in Damascus. This powerful grouping has fragmented, with Turkey and Qatar moving closer to the Russian-backed Iranian-led axis, which is the dominant power in the northern tier of the Middle East between Afghanistan and the Mediterranean. If the US and Saudi Arabia wanted to do anything about this new alignment, they have left it too late. Other states in the Middle East are coming to recognize that there are winners and losers, and have no wish to be on the losing side. When President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called a meeting this week in Istanbul of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, to which 57 Muslim states belong, to reject and condemn the U.S. decision on Jerusalem, Saudi Arabia only sent a junior representative to this normally moribund organization. But other state leaders like Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, King Abdullah of Jordan and the Emirs of Kuwait and Qatar,